Hey, I'm Brandon. I'm going to talk today about how to come up with a brilliant idea. Like, how many times have you come up with an idea for an app? You think, man, this is going to be $1 billion idea. It's going to, change the world. Maybe you have an idea already. Maybe you just need help thinking an idea through. This video is going to talk about the next steps. When you go about trying to discover an idea, ways that you can approach coming up with a good idea in case you don't have one. You might want to define that problem with a subject matter expert and ask them for some challenges that they're experiencing. Maybe you're an actual expert at a particular subject already. You also can define a good idea by reading reviews of other existing products or services that handle that niche. Looking at the apps that already kind of serve that niche and looking for problems in those apps that people have expressed is another way to do it. I also like to do things like go out to Capterra. And so when we go and we look there, we can actually map out specific features. Now, there's another approach too, and that is literally going to ChatGPT and asking it for to tell us about a problem. So if I asked ChatGPT to tell me about a problem that relates to the equestrian industry that could be solved by software, then what it's going to do is it's going to tell me about a problem that you could use software to solve. Those are just some ways that we can approach finding an idea. We have to define it, validate it, and plan it. Then we can start building it. So when we have an idea, we think to ourselves, oh, this isn't gonna be that big of a deal to try out. But in fact, it normally is a pretty substantial undertaking. The first question you gotta ask yourself is your idea actually brilliant? You may say, well, I believe in myself. I believe in my idea. I have confidence and faith in this. You need to get some other points of views, right? Because you're always going to have a bias toward yourself. So this is where the subject matter experts or SMEs really come into play. You might need an NDA. You might not. Don't be in too big a rush to throw NDAs in front of everybody if you're just talking about concepts. Once those things become invested in, then NDAs become necessary for the people that are involved in the ongoing work. Now, you're going to want to discuss your idea with multiple SMEs. I've been told that you should ask 50 subject matter experts. Another thing you can do at this phase, when you're talking to people, especially when you're talking to people that could be your prospective customer, is you can ask them for an LOI or a letter of intent. And so a lot of people, when they're putting together ideas in early stages, they get these LOIs from people because what that does is it actually gives you some leverage later you can use when you go to raise money. You may be wanting to do something like make an advisory board. There is some stuff you can do with stock option incentives later. I like Carta.com. It's a great system, a great platform for issuing stock, but there's a point when you do it and it's not necessarily when you're just exploring viability. Ideas tend to be viable only about 20% of the time. So we got to make sure we slow our roll. We don't want to rush into something. We need to do our homework really well, get that viability assessment done. And then if we're confident in this to the point where we're willing to invest our own money into it, that's when we're going to make our first informal investment into our idea. And we're going to hire a professional to do a viability study, a real viability study. Having a professional handle that for you is just going to take a lot of burden off of you, and it's going to give you something that's actually really useful later. When you get that, then you take that and discuss it with your advisory board. If it's viable, then great. And if it's not viable, then you've only spent a very small amount of money on a study to figure out if you need to spend more money. Now, if you don't find any competition for your idea, you may say, this market's wide open. Guess what? It might not exist. Okay, so if there's no market for it, then there's not going to be any competition. If your idea is viable tomorrow, but not today, that may mean that in 10 years or 15 years, everybody's gonna be doing that or needing it, but today, nobody is gonna use it or need it. So you could build it and then it's gonna just rot until the future when it could be used, and it's gonna be so far behind the curve at that point because it was developed too early. So building something today for tomorrow is very risky and not necessarily recommended. So I'd be passionate about your idea, but I'd also guard my emotions towards it at this stage and kind of say, we'll see, okay? So this is kind of the slow your roll, right? So the next thing we're gonna talk about is planning this thing out. That's gonna be in my next video, but I hope this video has helped you to really get a good understanding of how to come up with that idea, conceptualize it, and be ready to be in a position to start the planning next.